So this is an exploration into the historicity and the foundational role of how Ayurvedic science ruled almost the entire world, from China on this side to the Europe on the other side. Well, this may be a tall claim, but I'll show how this happened over a period of time and how medicine shifted its paradigm in a few ways, and what we see now. Why would, Ayurveda, a lot of people consider that as a sham, as something superstitious, as something that, we are seeing what's going on now in India with some of the claims going on Baba Ramdev and how he's handling the things. This whole thing of Ayurveda is just a sham. It's not science. It's based on superstition, belief, and faith is the trend that has gone on for many years, even many decades. And my point through this talk is to show how scientific, in fact, it is, and how modern medicine actually adopted some of the concepts and owned it. So Vagbhata, one of the primary Ayurvedic physicians, says a physician should not be too obsessed with labeling or naming diseases. He didn't say he should not name diseases, but a physician, the one who is healing, the healer, the scientist, should not be obsessed with the naming of disease. Instead, the goal is to regain balance, which is an imbalance that happens at a deeper level, at a root level. Identifying the root cause. Cause is important, cause and effect, right? So causality is an important thing in medicine. Ayurvedic physicians they didn't simply say that it is because of the gods cursing you that you have certain diseases. They brought rationality into the field of medicine, as opposed to myth and mysticism and faith and belief. Most of us think that Ayurveda is based on faith and belief. No, Ayurveda is based on reason. Of course, there is faith and belief sprinkled into it for the diseases that you don't understand, but identifying the cause is of paramount importance. As if you actually look at Vagbhata, Sushruta, and Charaka, they talk about reason into medicine. Now, we think that reason into medicine is a given, right? No. For thousands of years, humans did not understand how human body worked. They felt that it is because the wrath of gods or divine forces or natural forces that happen to, or because you have done some sin or committed a sin and therefore you suffer. These Ayurvedic physicians and philosophers came in and introduced reason and rationale by giving such statement. The goal of physician is to aid in patient in regaining the lost balance. They didn't say do certain rituals so that what you have sinned will go away and gods will be pleased.
Namaste and welcome to Indic Talks organized by Center for Indic Studies. We wish merry to all as Navratra is in full swing. We bring to you in this episode the untold Ayurvedic origins of modern medicine. In this talk, we explore the underappreciated historical links and the pivotal role of ancient Indian philosophies in shaping Greek philosophy and how Ayurveda influenced the evolution of modern medical science. Elucidating the same, we have our speaker, Dr. Rajeev Kurapati, a US-based physician and philosopher who obtained medical training in Chennai, Kentucky, and Arizona. He holds an MBA, a master's in Sanskrit, and authored award-winning books blending medicine, philosophy, and spirituality. I welcome you, sir, and I request you to take over from here.
Thank you, Ojasvi. I'm very happy to be back on Indus University and happy to connect with your audience and with you. Today's topic is something very interesting in the sense that it dwells into the history of medicine, but also it helps us understanding the weaknesses of modern medicine. As someone who has been in the field of medicine for the last almost 30 years, since 1995 when I joined medical school, I have seen both the strengths and the weaknesses of modern medicine. So let me share and get started with. So this is an exploration into the historicity and the foundational role of how Ayurvedic science ruled almost the entire world, from China on this side to the Europe on the other side. Well, this may be a tall claim, but I'll show how this happened over a period of time and how medicine shifted its paradigm in a few ways and what we see now. So why is this important? Why would, I mean, Ayurveda, a lot of people consider that as a sham, as something superstitious, as something that, I mean, we are seeing what's going on now in India with some of the claims going on Baba Ramdev and how he's handling the things. I mean, this whole thing of Ayurveda is just a sham. It's not science. It's based on superstition, belief, and faith. Is the trend that has gone on for many years, even many decades. And my point through this talk is to show how scientific, in fact, it is, and how modern medicine actually adopted some of the concepts and owned it. The reason why I got interested in this is because when I was in medical training here in US, when I was doing my residency, which we call post-graduation in India, when I was doing my residency, one of my professors of medicine, she was practicing, what we call principles of Ayurveda and incorporating into Western medicine. And I asked her why she's doing it, how both, because their epistemology, the way they see diseases are different, and how she can incorporate both systems of medicine into one. And she told me very bluntly, Rajeev, most of the sciences originated from India and spread to the rest of the world and took different shapes and forms. And those areas, those regions of the world adapted. In my presentation, in that book, I show how who was once the physician who was also a priest became a person of science. So my part of my presentation is based on the book I've written, the research I've done. And before I go into the historical origins of Ayurveda and how it influenced modern medicine, I want to show you the current fate of medicine. If you look at the most common conditions, chronic conditions in adults over 45, these occupy most of the space. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, arthritis, heart disease, which is ischemic or coronary heart disease, diabetes is pretty big, chronic kidney disease, heart failure, depression, dementia, most common one is Alzheimer's dementia, and COPD. Of course, another big one is obesity in this. 42% of American population is obese, 70% is overweight. That makes these two the majority. Minority is normal weight people. In that 30%, I said 70% are overweight, right? In that 30%, a portion of that is not normal weight people. They're malnourished. And only a fraction of that, only a portion of that 30%, I don't know the exact numbers, I didn't put this here, is normal weight people. So why, despite the medical advancements, despite what we call the rise of artificial intelligence and so on, we know that it is in the initial phases, but the last 200 years or so of development of modern medicine, despite that, we see the rise. I mean, in the next few slides, I'm going to show how it is actually not getting better, all these chronic diseases. It's actually getting worse with time. In a 2023 global report on health, you see the emerging trend, it is right from 1990s to 2019, and the projected increase is even worse actually for hypertension. Now, this is diabetes. You see the curve trending up and not flattening or going down. This is diabetes. We saw hypertension, diabetes, and then this is death from cardiovascular disease has jumped from 1990s to from 1990s to 2021. You see a jump in death from cardiovascular disease. Not just incidents, not just people with heart disease, but increase in the death from heart diseases. And you see young people raising rates of cancer. You see cancer in younger population, and the estimate, as you can see, as we head into 2030, the year 2030, you see a sharp rising cancer incidence. And obesity in children, you see children obesity curve is rapidly raising, and we already see that in general. We don't need studies, but studies help us. But you go to the airport, railway stations, or bus stands, and you see younger people getting more overweight and obese. I'm not going into the reasons of it. I'm just saying how modern medicine failed at curtailing or handling these things. I'm a physician of Western medicine, so I'm very proud of what it has achieved, but I'm also showing its weaknesses through these slides. And you see COPD, chronic bronchitis or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, it's in low income groups, it's rising. High income groups, it is plateauing. That is because of the decrease in cigarette smoking, which is good. And then dementia continues to rise. As we head into 2050, you see rapid rises of dementia. Chronic kidney disease, again, it's rising. So if I'm using an example of chronic disease to show what are the factors that can cause it. You see diabetes, high blood pressure, heart problems, obesity, tobacco use, family history. As these things raise, diabetes is on the upswing, high blood pressure is on the up, is increasing, heart disease is increasing. Obviously, chronic diseases is also increasing because of that. We see all these chronic conditions continues to raise and projected into 2030s and 2050s. We see that. Now, where did we go wrong? Right? So if we are so proud of Western medicine and we feel like everything else is complementary medicine, everything else doesn't work, well, why is Western medicine failing at many things? Of course, Western medicine helped us to achieve better infant mortality rate. In other words, as the infants are living or not dying as they used to, the lifespan has increased, right? People used to die in their 30s and 40s. Now they're living into 70s and 80s. And because of vaccination, disease and death rates have come down. Like things like smallpox and polio vaccinations, mumps, measles, and so on. And maternal mortality has come down. Trauma care has improved. Surgery has seen enormous improvement because of surgical techniques, because of anesthesia. So all these great things are happening in medicine. And yet you see these chronic conditions continue to go up. So the question one should ask is, the physicians especially should ask is, are these diseases, high blood pressure, cholesterol, arthritis, and so on, are these actually diseases? Or are these symptoms of something else going on at a cellular level? We see science advance and we understand that there is a thing called mitochondria. And if there is a dysfunction in mitochondria, you see a variety of diseases, right? You see variety of symptoms because of disease happening at a mitochondrial or cellular level. You see many symptoms in the form of high blood pressure, high blood sugar, inflammation in the joints, which is arthritis, lack of memory power or cognitive ability, which we call dementia. All the names that we give are actually symptoms of something bad, sinister happening at a cellular level. the naming of a disease is important. For example, you name a disease called obesity so that you can identify it. But by naming it, what we have done a grave injustice to the treatment of it. When people are obese, when we say people are obese, what do we mean by that? We take the weight of the person and we divide it by their height in meter square, weight in kilograms by height in meter square, and say that if this ratio, which we call BMI, body mass index, if this ratio is above 30, they are obese, right? This naming of the disease, this definition of the disease says nothing about what goes on in the body. It only tells us a certain numbers. And when we do that, we try to treat the numbers instead of the problem that is going on at a cellular level. The same thing happens in diabetes. We tend to treat the number, which is the blood sugar, rather than addressing the chronic inflammation that is going on or the insulin resistance that goes on at a cellular level. The same with hypertension. You know, in medicine, hypertension is also called essential hypertension. It's also called primary hypertension, same names, primary hypertension. It's also called idiopathic hypertension. And then there is a second category of hypertension called secondary hypertension. So when people called essential hypertension, when scientists about 100 years or so ago called it essential hypertension, they thought that hypertension was essential. And when they called it primary hypertension, in medicine, when you call something primary, it means that there is no reason, there is no cause for it. That is one of the mistakes that we did in our evolution of medicine, in our understanding of our body. We called it primary hypertension. We call primary hypothyroidism. You know, we give the tag primary to many diseases because we felt that they don't have a cause. The point there is, it's not that they don't have a cause. We haven't identified a cause. The moment we identify a cause, it goes into the second bucket called secondary hypertension. But there is no such thing as essential hypertension. There is no such thing as idiopathic hypertension. There is no such thing as essential hypertension or primary hypertension, because every high blood pressure has a cause. We just haven't identified it because we haven't spent enough time with our patients. So Vagbhata, one of the primary Ayurvedic physicians, says a physician should not be too obsessed with labeling or naming diseases. He didn't say he should not name diseases, but a physician, the one who is healing, the healer, the scientist, should not be obsessed with the naming of disease. Instead, the goal is to regain balance, which is an imbalance that happens at a deeper level, at a root level. Identifying the root cause. Cause is important, cause and effect, right? So causality is an important thing in medicine. Ayurvedic physicians they didn't simply say that it is because of the gods cursing you that you have certain diseases. They brought rationality into the field of medicine, as opposed to myth and mysticism and faith and belief. Most of us think that Ayurveda is based on faith and belief. No, Ayurveda is based on reason. Of course, there is faith and belief sprinkled into it for the diseases that you don't understand, but identifying the cause is of paramount importance. As if you actually look at Vagbhata, Sushruta, and Charaka, they talk about reason into medicine. Now, we think that reason into medicine is a given, right? No. For thousands of years, humans did not understand how human body worked. They felt that it is because of the wrath of gods or divine forces or natural forces that happen to, or because you have done some sin or committed a sin and therefore you suffer. These Ayurvedic physicians and philosophers came in and introduced reason and rationale by stating such by giving such statement, the goal of physician is to aid in patient in regaining the lost balance. They didn't say do certain rituals so that what you have sinned will go away and gods will be pleased. Rational thinking in the practice of medicine happened about 3 or 4 thousand years ago, but we were told otherwise. Who are the original thinkers of medicine, the original philosophers, the healers, the practitioners of medicine? We'll get to that as we course through this presentation. We were told and led to believe that Greek medicine originated in around 600, 650 BC. That is where human intellect flowered and lasting glory through the concept of body, mind, and spirit happened at around 600, 650 BC, at the time of Thales, Pythagoras, and later Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, and then Hippocrates and Galen, and then all these philosophers, the physicians who followed them, and so on. This emerged, this theory, this hypothesis that Greek medicine started, or rationality or reason started in medicine with Greeks, emerged as a dominant discipline in our understanding. That is why you see Greek and Latin words in medicine. But where did Greeks get this knowledge from? So that is what we're going to explore. Many Western scholars, they are quick to conclude that ancient Indians, in fact, everybody in the world, drew their inspiration from the healing art, from the in the healing art of the medical works of the Greeks. But the reverse is actually true, which I'm going to prove here. Of course, nobody has historical or archaeological or historical evidence. What we have is what we call circumstantial evidence. By connecting the dots, you arrive at the conclusion and say that this is how it probably happened. Of course, you can disprove it by showing counter arguments, but I'm going to provide some evidence to prove how the Greeks were actually inspired and influenced by the Indian philosophers and healers of antiquity. And now let me show you what the scholars are saying. Thorwald, in his book Science and Secrets of Early Medicine, published in 1963, tells us that or mentions the Greek medicine, including that variety of it called Hippocratian, or the medicine that Hippocrates produced, has produced nothing in the field of surgery, where Sushruta has already developed a lot of Sushruta and his followers developed a lot in the field of surgery. I'm not talking about the modern surgery, right? Modern surgery is way ahead of Ayurvedic surgery. But they do mention that even before Greeks started thinking about operating on humans, Sushrutan philosopher, Sushrutan school of surgery has already started doing numerous surgeries. And Royal, in his book, gives evidence how Hippocrates borrowed much of the materia medica from the Hindus. Materia medica is a compendium of medicinal herbs and pharmacology and plants of that time, how Hippocrates borrowed from it. And why he's a scholar in ancient Indology, he tells us that it is to the Indians, Hindus, that we owe the first system of medicine. And in Neuberger, in the History of Medicine in 1910, published in 1910 from Oxford University Press, he mentioned that Greek medicine adopted Indian medicaments and method, which is evident from the literature. So let's go to Greek philosophy and see who actually taught them or influenced them. When we go to Greek philosophy, we say the reason why I mentioned philosophers in medicine, these are, some of them are not physicians, but these philosophers actually influenced physicians of antiquity and later modern philosophy, modern medicine. And we will start with the Greek philosophers. Everything starts with whom we call the 7 sages of the Greek, the 7 Greek sages. Of them, it starts with Thales, Thales, Thales. I'll get to that in a minute. And following him, these are the prominent Greek philosophers: Pythagoras, Heraclitus, Parmenides, Socrates, Democritus, Plato, Aristotle, Dionysius of Sinope, Epicurus, Zeno. These are all the philosophers. And these are the Greek physicians who are also the philosophers. Hippocrates, Diocles, Praxagoras. Pardon me for not pronouncing these names right, for I'm not a Greek. So I can pronounce the Sanskrit names well and not the Greek names. And you see all these names: Herophilus, Erasistratus, Asclepiades, Themison, Galen. We know Galen, who is a very prominent physician. And if you look at the Greek philosophers' timeline or chronology, you see Thales, Anaximander, Anaximenes, Pythagoras, Zeno, Parmenides, Empedocles, Heraclitus, Anaxagoras, Democritus, and later Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. The above 3 lines that you see up until the Democritus, they are pre-Socratean philosophers. And after Socrates is another era in philosophy and later in medicine. Socrates, who influenced Plato, Plato's student Aristotle. And Aristotle started a whole new revolution in philosophy and medicine and sciences, which followed for almost 1700 years, up until Francis Bacon and René Descartes in 17th century changed the fate of medicine forever. And now coming back to Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, these Greek philosophers influenced Hippocrates, who is an influential physician. The funny part is, there is no historical evidence to prove that Hippocrates ever existed. We get Hippocrates' theories from his students, from the writings of his students. Hippocrates, there is no evidence to prove Hippocrates actually wrote something. We get everything, we get the evidence from his students mentioning his name. And Galen is another very influential Greek and eventually Roman philosopher. So the fall of Greek, and then Rome took over during the time of Aristotle, after him. And then, of course, the fall of Rome happened. So the sources of Greek history. Where do we get all this information? How do we know all these Thales, Pythagoras, Heraclitus, Socrates? How do we know all these people existed? What is the source of knowledge? What is the evidence to show that even these people existed and they propagated a certain knowledge? It all comes from one person called Diogenes Laertius. I hope that is Laertius, maybe Laertius. Diogenes Laertius was an ancient historian. He's a biographer. He was probably active. In fact, his exact dates were unknown. So he was probably active in the 3rd century AD or ACE. He's famous for his works called Lives and Opinions of Eminent Philosophers. Especially those Greek lives and opinions of the eminent philosophers. It's a collection of biography of Greek philosophers. This served as a valuable source about the lives of all these philosophers. And it's one of the few surviving sources, right from the pre-Socrates, which is Pythagoras, Thales, to the Hellenistic period, which is Rome, up until the fall of Rome. So he mentions that there are 2 types of Greek philosophies. One is the the 2 types. One is the Ionian philosophy. Second is the Pythagorean school. Ionian philosophy and Pythagorean school of philosophy. the first type of philosophy, Ionian, gets its name from the place of its origin. Ionia is a group of islands in a place which used to be called Asia Minor. It was the epicenter of Greek knowledge at that time. And the most prominent philosopher of this Ionian philosophy belonging to Asia Minor is Thales of Miletus. Thales of Miletus. So Thales or Thales and his students Anaximander of Miletus. So what is this Miletus? Miletus is a tiny island city in Asia Minor. We'll get to that in a minute. Ionia was an ancient region in the western coast of Anatolia, which is present day in the region of the present day Turkey. So you see in this map here, you see the Turkey, and in one of the coastal tiny cities called Miletus. You can see the bigger map where it belongs to. This is the Turkey, the Asia. This area, this whole area is called Asia Minor. You can see in that blue arrow where Miletus belongs to. This Turkey and the Miletus, this is the epicenter of pre-Socratean Greek philosophy. So this is Asia Minor. How did we get the word Asia Minor? In fact, how did we get the word Asia itself? Who coined the word? It's an interesting history behind it. We don't call it Asia Minor anymore. But this area, what came to be known as Asia Minor, is the southwestern part of Asia, what we call current day Asia. It is the southwestern part. It is the present day region of the Turkey, as you can see here, right? So this entire Turkey used to be called Asia Minor. This here. And the earliest reference to this Asia Minor comes from Akkadian dynasty, 2000 years before Christ, BCE, before Common Era, where people whom they call themselves Hittites, from the land called Hatti. The Hatti belonged to the northern Egypt, of the current day Egypt. And these people of this Asia Minor, what came to be known as Asia Minor, they actually referred themselves to as Asuan people. Asua was the people belonging to that Asia Minor. The earlier name of Asua was Aswiya, probably from the Sanskrit word called Aishwarya, meaning wealth, right, in Sanskrit. So this area, what used to be called Aishwarya from Sanskrit, because they had a lot of wealth in that land, a lot of gold, a lot of wealth. The Persian region, the northern Egyptian region, so they were wealthy people. They considered themselves as Aishwarya, Asviya, became Asua, and eventually became Asia. So you can see the Sanskritic origins of the word Asia there. Now, let me show you in the next few slides how the Vedic or the Sanatana Dharmic, what we call Sanatana Dharma, or the Dharmic philosophies actually influence these people in the Asia Minor, in the Turkey, and then in the Miletus region, how they got influenced. You see, Thales of Miletus, he's one of the 7 sages of the Greek of the East, or 7 sages of Greek, 7 Greek sages. You see Saptarishis, right? In our philosophy, in our history, we see Saptarishis. Coinciding with Saptarishis of our Indic region of the Asian or the Indian subcontinent, they had another set of 7 rishis or 7 sages, which was actually probably influenced by the Saptarishis of our Indic region. And one of them is Thales of Miletus. So Thales started that instead of gods and divine forces, the source of our strength comes from water. He believed that water is the essence of all matter, suggesting that every form of life and matter had origin in water. In fact, that is true because we know that um, life started in water and then evolved and terrestrial animals happened. But where did he get this inspiration from? Or where did he get this knowledge from? See, listen, you can disprove me. You can say that, oh, how can you say that all this knowledge came from the ancient Indic subcontinent when people in Greek might have independently thought about these without any influence of others? It's probably true, but I'm showing circumstantial evidence to show that people many hundreds of years ago already thought about this, and then there is a geographical connection between Asia Minor and what might have been Asia Major, which is the Indian subcontinent. So the Turkey people in the Turkey, ancient Turkey, not now, ancient Turkey, there is definitely cross-cultural intermixing, sharing of knowledge that happened from the Vedic Brahmanas, from the Vedic sages, and that knowledge has passed on. We know Rigveda is the oldest surviving literature or the oldest surviving text that we have, right? It predates the pre-Socratic philosophers, Rigveda. And in Rigveda, it has been mentioned what we called Apah Sutram. Apaha Sutram. Apaha means up means water. Apaha, water. Suktam. Suktam is a collection of sayings, collection of statements. In Rigveda, in Mandala 10 and Sukta 9, you see what is called Apa Sutram. It goes like this: Apo hishta mayo bhuvaha tana urje dadhatana mayoran mahiranaya chakshase yo vashivata morasaha tasya bhajayate anaha kshatiriva mataraha tasmat arangamamavu yasya kshayaya jinvatha apo janayatha chanaha. It goes on. I just mentioned three statements from this Apa Sutta. The reason why it goes on like that, the way I pronounced it or pretty much sang it, is because it comes, Rigveda has what is called swara, right? What is called swara. It goes like this: Apo hishta mayo bhuvaha anavujje dadhatana mahirana yachakshase yo vashivata morasaha tasya bhajayate hanaha ushatiriva mataraha tasmaad arangamamavaha yasya kshayaya jinvatha apo janayatha chanaha. The reason why this is important with Swara is that the ancient Vedic rishis just didn't write something randomly. They wrote something that is meaningful, that is rationalistic, I mean, with reason, and they added Swara to it so that it adds meaning to it, because if you change the Swara, the meaning changes to Vedic hymns. And it is also a memory aid. You can remember it, which is why, because of the swara, the actual original Vedic hymns or the slokas or the suktas were carried on for thousands of years. What does this Apa Sutra say? O water, because of your presence, the atmosphere is so refreshing and imparts us with vigor and strength. We revere you with who gladdens us by your pure essence. O water, this auspicious sap of yours, means the essence of yours, please share with us, like a mother desiring to share her best possession with her children. O water, when your invigorating essence goes to one affected by weakness, it enlivens him. O water, you are the source of our lives. You see this Rigveda Sukta, and you see what Thales of Miletus is saying, the pre-Socratic philosopher. Thales believed that water is the essence of all life, all matter, and all matter originated in water. We know this is already mentioned in Rigveda, which was predates Thales and all Greek origins. And now he is Anaximander is another is a probably is a student of Thales, one of the seven sages of Greece. So Anaximander has introduced into Greece at that time the Asia Minor. Europe was not even existing. They were tribal people. They were guerrilla warriors. We don't know much about what kind of philosophy or knowledge they had, but around 600 BCE, we know that Thales and Milesian or people from Melesia were philosophers. And now Anaximander in 610 BCE or 546 to 610 BCE, he introduced a concept called, I don't know how it is pronounced, but epiron. Epiron is how probably they pronounced it. What it means is infinite or limitless. He introduced this pre-Socratic philosopher introduced this concept and mentioned that everything originated from this limitless concept. Now we know that is nothing but Brahman. The word Bra means limitless, expanding, something that is beyond our mental comprehension, right? Beyond our comprehension, that is expanding. Anaximander proposed that the universe originated from this boundless, indefinite, primordial principle or substance that is not water, air, earth, or fire. These four elements. I'll mention what these four elements are as we go on in the next few slides. These are four bhutas. For us, we have pancha bhutas, right? But these Pythagoras or these pre-Socratic philosophers, they took four of these five panchabhutas, the chaturbhutas, and said that what we call as epiron, which is limitless, which is infinite, is independent of all these four elements. And from this, all these four elements emerged, and from water emerged the rest of the life, according to Thales. According to Anaximander, the epiron was eternal and ageless, and it encompasses all worlds, created opposites such as hot and cold, wet and dry, everything. The duality that you see originated from this primordial principle called epiron, that Brahman, the Purusha, probably the word Purusha, the epiron was probably coming from the word Purusha. You know the Purusha Sukta, right? So Purusha or Sat, Chit, Ananda, all these terms that we give for the Brahman is nothing but the, or the Epirion is nothing but Brahman. And now Heraclitus, belonging to the pre-Socratic Greek era, is a pre-Socratic philosopher. He mentioned that there is an absolute reality, but it is hidden from us. The only thing stopping us from the awareness of this hidden harmony in nature is our incredulity, means our incapability of examining or our ignorance. Our minds are so fixed on the material aspects that we take it. These are not my words. These are direct words, translations from Heraclitus. Our minds are so fixated on or fixed on material that we take this relative level of reality to be everything. Yet there is an absolute reality that awaits our appreciation. This is nothing but the non-dual, the Advaita Vedanta that we talk about. Two levels of reality, right? One level of reality is the material world. The second level of reality is the state where you have realized or you are enlightened, you have understood the Advaitic concept, right? And now we come to Pythagorean philosophy, still pre-Socrates, but from Thales, we come to Pythagoras. This is the second type of philosophy that that we come to know of Greek philosophy, named after, he was from an immigrant from Greece to Italy. Now you start seeing from that Miletus in Greece, which is Miletus in the Asia Minor, the the north, east, south, west, the southwestern part of Turkey from Miletus to you start seeing knowledge moving eastward into Italy. So he's an immigrant from Greece to Italy. His name is Pythagoras, and he became very famous through his school of thought and through his students who continued his legacy. Let us see what Pythagoras said, and is it even original? Now, I know that my talk is based on the Ayurvedic origins of modern medicine, but without understanding these philosophical concepts, it will be an incomplete analysis of the entire how philosophy originated and how how physicians absorbed some of these philosophies and appropriated to medicine, and how that has changed in the 17th century by Francis Bacon and René Descartes. So coming back to Pythagoras, look at Pythagorean, how how he proposed his philosophy and how it influenced physicians or healers. He promoted holistic health. He promoted that human being as an aggregate is a balance of body, mind, and spirit. Proper health is a balance of body, mind, and spirit. He influenced physicians to consider overall well-being using reason and rationality, not based on faith and belief. He advocated vegetarian diet. He emphasized nutrition role in health and disease prevention. And we talk about Hippocrates saying these concepts, but Hippocrates was also influenced by the Socratean and pre-Socratic philosophers. Pythagoras emphasized importance of lifestyle, moderation, and harmony in life. He inspired or he promoted lifestyle changes for health or diseases. He had a huge influence on later philosophers like Plato and Aristotle. His views shaped medical theories on balance of health and self-discipline and dietary restrictions, ethical practices. Everything, a lot of Greek philosophy was influenced by Pythagoras. Interestingly, Pythagoras also believed in the transmigration of soul. He didn't fear death. Pythagoras did not fear death because he believed that soul transmigrates from one life to another. And following him, Empedocles also belonged to a Greek colony in Sicily. Now, he was the one who promoted the four-element theory, which later came to be incorporated into Greek medicine. This Empedocles actually got the four-element theory. Now, there is no direct evidence, but there is circumstantial evidence, because by then, Ayurvedic philosophers already incorporated the Panchabhutas, the five elements, air, water, earth, fire, and ether, into their healing paradigm, into their healing profession. So this Empedocles took four of those five elements because he did not understand the concept of ether, and he promoted that because of this intermingling of this five element, life happens, or changes in life happens, and the dynamic equilibrium between opposing forces. He was one of the philosophers who promoted this idea of opposing forces, heat and cold, and all these concepts, and linked them to these four elements. This was actually taken up by Aristotle and later philosophers such as Hippocrates and following him Galen, and they put this into the field of medicine. Now, see how reason started, whether right or wrong is a different thing, how they started reasoning out and trying to separate themselves from the belief in gods and curse and sin and so on, these philosophers. And then comes another older contemporary of Empedocles called Anaxagoras. He was born in the Ionian city, right? He was born in the Ionian city, and he came to Athens at the age of 20. He wrote in his book that all things were together in the beginning. All things were one undifferentiated entity in the beginning, and then mind came and set them in order. And he called it Nous, N-O-U-S, Nous. By Nous, he meant, Anaxagoras meant, it's a directing principle of the original intelligence, and this mind that arose within this cosmic intelligence actually took over and put things in order. He was the first to enthrone to the universe, not chance, not by chance. Things didn't happen by chance, but he said mind or Nous. It is pure and simple. It distinguishes and sets things apart. In the midst of otherwise a chaotic mass, the substances which have like elements. In other words, you see the Sankhyan philosophers, they talk about Purusha and Prakriti, right? From Prakriti, this is not the talk about our Indian, the Sankhyan philosophers, which I think I might have given other talks on this, but I might give another talk in the future on Sankhyan philosophy. But this Anaxagoras was probably influenced by the Sankhyan philosophers who already put together philosophy way before 500 BCE. And Anaxagoras observed, also mentioned that there is a portion of everything in everything. By everything means the four elements, for example, earth has elements of all other four elements: earth, water, fire, and wind. So all these elements are present in each element. So this Sankhyan philosophers, the Sankhya, ancient Indian philosophers called Sankhyans, they already proposed what came to be known later as Panchikaranam. You see this in Vedanta, a mention of Panchikaranam. Panchikaranam is same as that there is a portion of everything in everything. Portion in everything means there's a portion of all four elements in one element. You take fire, it has all four elements in different proportions. You take water, it has all four elements in different proportions. Earth, the same thing. And now comes to Plato. Plato took this concept of mind, and later Aristotle. They called it mind or intelligence that controls the operation of the cosmos. The harmony that happens in the cosmos is also a harmony that happens within the human body. That is how this concept of harmony or humors came into the concept of ancient Greek medicine. It guides it guides the entire universe and also the humans. And then came another pre-Socratic philosopher called Democritus. He was popularly came to be known as the father of atomic theory. But that was the atomic theory of the Greeks, of the West. But by then, the Vaisheshika Darshana of Kannada was already a philosophy, already a Darshana means Drishyate. So the way of seeing the universe, the way of approaching, the way of seeing the universe. Drashta, Darshana, all these words come from the Drush Dhatu, to see things clearly. Philosophers see things clearly or have a view of the universe. And those are Drashtas. Kannada was Kannada philosopher or sage Kannada proposed what is called Vaisheshika Darsana, which is based on the atom. He called it Anu or Paramanu. And Democritus probably got inspired or cleverly appropriated or copied from Vaisheshika Darshana and owned it and made it into atomic theory. Now, again, this is circumstantial evidence. You can disprove me, you can prove me, you can do whatever you like, but evidence shows that Vaisheshika Darshana or philosophy is much older than Democritus. And now after him comes Socrates, Plato, and then Aristotle. Aristotle is a very clever man, philosopher. He took all the concepts from everywhere and owned it and developed his own theories. He had enormous emphasis on soul, and he these philosophers called it Aristotle didn't coin the term prime mover, but he adopted it from his teachers. That which makes the body alive and capable of performing its characteristic functions is the soul, Aristotle called it, and it is the prime mover. And he also divided the functions in health in general, the functions in human body, into three categories. One is vegetative function, such as nutrition and growth of the body. The second is sensory functions or actions, vision, hearing, taste, smell, touch, which are not physical, but they are very essential. So these are sensory functions. The third is the function of the intellect, thinking, memory, imagination, etc. Now you see this vegetative function or matter, right? Vegetative function is matter, sensory action, and then intellect. You see from Charaka Samhita, Sutrasthana 1.42, there is a statement called Sharira Sharirendriya Sattva Atma Sanyogaha. Sharira Indriya Sattva Atma Sanyogaha. Sanyoga means the union, the joining of Sharira, which is vegetative matter or Sharira, which is the body, right? The vegetative aspect of the body. Indriya, the sensory functions. Sattva, mind. Atma, soul. All this together forms what we call Sharirendriya Sattvatma Sanyogaha Dhari Jivitam Ityuchate. Means this is what health means. It's a union or a harmony of your body, mind, senses, and what controls these, which is the prime mover. So this was mentioned. Now people say Charaka Samhita was written in 800 to 700 BCE, but people say that this Charaka is different from the original Charaka because you can see references dating back from earlier Charaka, but this Charaka Samhita was actually written by the students of the original Charaka. So, I mean, you can give different dates to it, but it definitely predates Aristotle. We know that. And now, Aristotle also mentioned in his book Metaphysics about the first principle of Thales. In fact, that is how we know that Thales gave the first principle of water. We saw that Apa Sutra, right? The water Sukta from the Rig Veda. Aristotle mentioned the first substance or the first principle is what everything originates from. These are direct statements from Aristotle's book. The first principle is what everything originates from, what everything eventually returns to, and what everything unchanged underneath despite these changes in qualities and attribute. In other words, from which everything originates, by which everything sustains, and into which everything goes back, that is the prime mover. But that prime mover does not change, but everything that comes and goes changes. Now you see Taittiriya Upanishad, direct statement, Yato va imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti, yat prayanti abhisam vishanti, yat prayanti abhisam vishanti, from which all beings are born, by which all beings are nourished or live, and into which they enter after death. Tad vijignasasva tad brahma iti, tad brahmeti. This is, I mean, that is the actual continuation of this sloka from or mantra from Taittiriya Upanishad. Yato va imani bhutani jayante, yena jatani jivanti, yat prayanti abhisam vishanti, tad vijignasasva tad brahma iti, tad brahmeti. So you see how I don't want to be harsh, but I have to be. How the Greek philosophers cleverly, shamelessly appropriated, took these Upanishadic, Vedic, Dharmic, Sanatana Dharmic, Vedic philosophies and incorporated into their theories and made it into a philosophy or science and did not credit the original philosophers. And now we see Aristotle's golden mean. Aristotle mentioned a thing called a golden mean. I don't know the original language, what he mentioned, but that the translation is the golden mean. He said the golden mean is an important thing to consider because it promotes moderation and balance. It was relevant to medical practices concerning balance and diet and health. Now we know by the time of Aristotle, Buddha and Buddhism was already present, right? And Buddha mentions a middle path. Of course, he talks about enlightenment and other things, but Buddhism has helped spread off the medical sciences too at the time into the regions of what we call the present day Turkey, Afghanistan, and so on. And the middle path is characterized by practices and lifestyle that generate wisdom, calmness, insight at a mental level, and good health and balance at a physical level. And now the Aristotle, I can keep going on and on. I think we're running out of time. But so Aristotle exploration of concept of the first cause principle, we already talked about it. And now comes the great so-called Greek, the reason why I call so-called Greek physician, ancient physician, because we don't have anything written by Hippocrates. We only know Hippocrates through his students. This Hippocrates was influenced by this new age thinking at the time, where rationality, reason was dominant in this part of the world at that of the Greek world at that time. Philosophers were called psysis, and questions what was behind life, who started it, what was the material form, how did life began. These were the questions that Greek philosophers at that time, Thales, Anaximander, pre-Socratic philosophers were talking about. But we already know these questions were already mentioned in Rig Veda, in Yajurveda, in Upanishads. They were already extensively studied by these darshanikas, these philosophers of the ancient Vedic or Indian belonging to the Indian subcontinent. But now we see why, from that period, from the 1 ACE or 1 AD or ACE, Common Era, to 3rd century ACE, to 1700s, where Francis Bacon and René Descartes started changing the fate of medicine. For almost 1500 or 15 to 1700 years, medieval medicine was practiced, but it failed miserably, which is why they had to change it to what we call Western medicine, the kind of medicine that I practice. There was lack of anatomical knowledge. Dissection was prohibited because of the influence of religion, which was growing. Abrahamic religions at that time prohibited human dissection. Religion was heavily influencing the practice of medicine. There was a real reliance on ancient texts like Galen and Hippocrates. There is lack of sanitation. Primitive techniques did not evolve at that time in the Western medicine. In this book, the book I wrote, Physician, How Science Transformed the Art of Medicine, I wrote 95%, in fact, 97 or 98% is about the history of Western medicine. In that book, I chronologically take you, the reader, through the history of medicine from Pythagorean time, pre-Socrates time, 600 BCE, through the present, through medieval times, into the 17th century, and into the current, and a little bit into the future. So it was the age of antiquity, medieval age, Renaissance period, and then we go through the age of enlightenment, and the age of enlightenment. These are the names that I have given: antiquity, medieval age, Renaissance, 1400s, 1500s, age of enlightenment, 1700s, age of innovation, 1900s, age of instruments, 20th century, where we started talking about advanced instruments, age of information, where digital revolution, technology, and then automation happens because of artificial intelligence. This is how we have gone through the history of medicine. And interestingly, despite a belief that Ayurveda is based on belief, myth, and superstition, we see that it is based on reason, based on rational thinking. Sharirendriya Sattvatma Sanyogaha. Health is considered as an interplay of these four elements. The reason why we cannot, or the modern medicine does not talk about soul or spirit, is not because doctors don't believe in it, or not because the doctors opposed to it, because we don't know how to prove it. Modern science is based on quantification, objectivity. So there is no way to test this hypothesis that there is a thing called prime mover or soul or Brahman that they exist, or Purusha or Sat Chit Ananda that exists. Because of that, we did not include it into the modern medicine. Modern medicine is based on statistics, based on mathematics, and based on validity. There is no way that you can quantify objectively what we call soul or spirit. Now I'm switching to what in medicine, through the history of medicine, I have come through the history of Western medicine, how it was influenced by the Vedic philosophers, Upanishadic philosophers. And now we actually look at what medicine aims to achieve, what patients want. Patients does not care about whether you give hypertension. I mean, they do care, but they're not too much worried about the naming of the diseases. What they want is only two things. One is they want to be happy. They want to avoid sorrow, right? Mental, physical sorrow. They want to be happy. When they go to physicians, physicians think that patients came to them because they want a medicine or a procedure. No, patients actually want to be happy, right? They want to have a healthy life so that they live a life of vigor and vitality, of strength, longevity, and have enjoy life, have quality of life. But if they suffer from disease and illness, they cannot have long, happy, healthy life. That is why they come to physicians. What physicians should do, whether it's Ayurvedic medicine or modern medicine, this is the basic principle. Physicians should aim at creating and sustaining a healthy state of mind and body based on the individual's attributes, not based on population studies. The reason why, so I'll get to the reason why and complete that statement in a minute. To achieve the state of health, achieve a healthy state, physicians must identify the cause of the disturbance that is causing the
Although,
hypertension, the
कौन सी other
diabetes,
bench?
dementia. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir, please continue.
Oh, okay. So they should identify the cause of the disturbance that is causing suffering or sorrow. And these diabetes, the high blood pressure, the dementias, the arthritis, and the heart diseases and obesity, these are all the symptoms of something happening at a deeper level, the root cause, the disturbance. And physicians should aim at mitigating or eliminating the cause while they are actually treating the blood pressures and the blood sugars and everything. They should also aim at identifying the root cause and treating it. They should treat the condition while they're treating the cause of it. And it should not stop there. They should rebuild the body because the damage has happened, and continuously support a rejuvenation program. This is what we can actually learn from Ayurveda. Principles of Ayurveda are important. The practices may be different, but the principles are timeless and very valuable, even to a modern physician, Westernly trained physician like me. And how do you enter the body? Charaka, the ancient physician, Ayurvedic physician, he declared that a physician who fails to enter the interior of a patient's body with the lamp of knowledge and wisdom can never treat the disease, the patient's disease. So what is this lamp of knowledge? How do you enter the human body, identify the disturbance, identify the cause of the problem that is leading to the end effects, such as all these diseases that we talk about? Now, this is the lamp of knowledge that the ancient physicians talk about, which is based on reason and not faith. Ayurvedic epistemology is very extensive, very broad. In fact, it's very beautiful. They base this, like epistemology, the source of knowledge, the means of obtaining knowledge, the pramana. They talk about pratyaksha, anumana, apta, upamana, anupalabdhi, and yukti. These I'm not going into great detail because your Ayurvedic physicians or other talks might have given, or I can give another talk on this. Pratyaksha is direct perception, anumana is inference, apta is expert opinion, upamana is by comparison, anupalabdhi is non-perception. For example, absence of a certain symptoms might mean that they might mean some underlying thing, good or bad, underlying causative factor going on. Absence of certain symptom, or absence of normal function, for example. Normal function, which is a state of health and equilibrium, happiness, absence of that might be because of whatever reason that they might find. And then reasoning, yukti, is important. And how do you test it? Through what we call vada. Through vada, dialogue and debate. Ayurveda is practiced differently in different parts of the country based on the geographical location, based on what's available. In fact, based on what the individual characteristic of the location, of the season. Dinacharya and Rutucharya are very important. Dinacharya is the things that you need to do on a daily basis to have optimum, to have good health, or to avoid diseases. Rutucharya is things that you do and don't do or avoid, based on the season. You cannot have the same type of diseases in winter as you have in summer. We know that. You don't need a physician to say it. We experience it. So to avoid certain diseases that happen within a particular season or during a particular season, for example, monsoon season where there is heavy rains, winter or summer, which, the diseases, the way our body reacts to our environment changes. So Ayurveda incorporates these. This is that one of the weaknesses of modern medicine is because everything is done in experimental, is done through experiments, and experiments are done in labs. And in labs, we create what we call controlled conditions. Because for our experiments to function, to happen, you have to control all other environmental factors so that you can focus on 1, 2, or 3 factors at a time. For example, how does this drug affect your blood pressure? Everything has to be constant. But in real life, everything is not constant. Everything is very dynamic. Things change in the morning, afternoon, and evening. Things change based on your life events. As you are aging, things change. Our age advances. You have a life-changing event like marriage, divorce, have a child, sick child, death of a parent, or you have moved from one place to another place. Your life or your health changes based on your circumstances. Western medicine, because it is based on experimental medicine, lab medicine, population medicine, it is very difficult to individualize treatments, because the foundational premise, the way knowledge develops or incorporated in Western medicine, is based on non-individualized conditions. So that is the challenge in Western medicine. So the main thing that is different from Ayurveda to Western medicine is, like I mentioned earlier, quantification. You cannot quantify everything in Ayurveda. It becomes very difficult. For example, there is a concept called Tridosha, Vata, Pitta, Kapha doshas. It's difficult to quantify it. The moment you quantify it, you are compromising the quality of it. Western medicine, everything has to be quantified so that you can test those theories. You can run through statistics, through mathematical analysis, computer simulations, and obtain data, and you can validate it and retest it. That is how Western medicine took a lot of compromises in quality at the expense of quality to focus on the quantity. In other words, quantitative analysis. And now, the goal of medicine, whether it's Western or Eastern, whatever type of medicine, ancient, modern medicine, or whether it is experimental medicine, whether it's qualitative medicine, is only two. One is to prolong life, which is increase longevity and improve the quality of life. You improve the quality of life by keeping the patient in state of health. And you need both paradigms, both the Ayurvedic paradigm and the Western paradigm to achieve this. It's important to go beyond the experimental lab condition, quantifying everything, and actually incorporate lifestyle, day-to-day changes, environmental changes, lifestyle changes, seasonal changes, and incorporate. And that is what Ayurveda offers us. And when you look at the history of Western medicine, it went through three main phases. One is holistic medicine, taking the whole person. You see holistic when you look at holistic medicine here, you see initially there is religion and medicine went hand in hand. Theories were based on observation, opinion, philosophy, and this is Western medicine, I mean, went hand in hand. Individual centered approach. This Western medicine was, like I mentioned earlier, based on the philosophies that were generated by Thales and Anaximander, Socrates, Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Hippocrates, and all these philosophers were influenced by the Vedic philosophers. And the Vedic philosophers focused on individual-centric Vedic medical philosophers, I mean practitioners, based on obtaining a proper balance, harmony, based on individual-centric approach. And in the 17th century, that has changed to what we call disease-centric medicine, because we shifted from holistic or whole person medicine to disease-centered medicine, which means diseases happen within organs, and the medicine at that point separated from religion or from, in fact, from philosophy itself. Treatments were based on evidence that was obtained from experiments and population statistics. Focus shifted from individuals to diseases, actually. When a person comes to a physician, we see them in terms of numbers. What is their weight, height? What is their blood pressure? What is their heart rate, respiratory rate? What is their thyroid number, based on their labs? What is their kidney function? Again, based on lab numbers, BU and creatinine. What are their electrolytes look like? What is their heart function look like based on calcium scoring and other things? And ejection fraction, how is their heart functioning? And liver, you get liver function. Everything is number based. So by putting all these together, the physician would say, all your numbers look good, you are in a healthy state. Or they might say, these numbers doesn't look good, you have kidney problems or kidney failure, heart disease, whatever. Everything is based on numbers. Quantification, objectivity is important in disease-centric medicine. But that does not give us the root cause of the problem. So you have to go to the cellular level. And again, the root cause of the problem depends on the person's lifestyle, ethnicity, race, gender, male or female, based on the location where they're living, based on the seasons, based on the day, timing of the day. Western medicine does not put all these things into perspective when we treat patients. We just give, oh, you have high blood pressure, 140 or 80, above 140 or 80, you have stage 1 hypertension, here are the medication. Of course, they will say decrease the salt content in your diet, but then that is also based on population studies. Some people are more salt sensitive, some people are not. So how do you know who is salt sensitive? Now they're saying genetics might be able to give an answer, but then again, genetics is a blueprint, right? So Ayurvedic physicians say, or Ayurveda says, everybody is born with what we call a prakriti, and over time they change. That prakriti changes and becomes vikriti. So our goal is to bring the vikriti, which is the modification, which essentially means everybody has a set of blueprint called genes or genetics or genes, genome, and their expression changes. You call it epigenetics or whatever genetics you call it, their expression changes. You can have the same set of genes, and over your lifetime, you can have their expression change from time to time. So this is a vikriti. changing from time to time based on lifestyle. It changes. So if you're exposed to environmental toxins, your genetic expression changes, you can have mutations and you can develop cancers and so on. So your Vikriti becomes important. So these are the things that we can learn from Ayurveda so that you can personalize medicine, and technology will help us because you can have continuous glucose monitoring, continuous blood pressure monitoring devices, but that does not give us the root of the problem, right? Because you're monitoring. Have to, but it helps us identify, okay, the person is going through these life changes. How is the blood pressure changing? But then again, you have to have uh, these parameters based on the person, not based on population. So that is where we're at. And now I'm going to conclude my talk by giving a suggestion, if I may, or my opinion. People who are not Ayurvedic healers, who are not trained in Ayurveda, should stop claiming they are Ayurvedic healers or should stop giving advices to people, because you need professionals to tell people what they should not do. Spiritual gurus, babas, swamis, swaminis, social media influencers, politicians, all these people should stay away from giving advices to people, because they feel that Ayurveda is, because that creates an impression that Ayurveda is based on faith healing. It is not. As I've shown through all these slides in the last 1 hour, Ayurveda is actually based on reason, but it is difficult to test all of those. And so modern medicine took a concession, took a compromise, and said, we're going to eliminate spirit out of our, or the soul or Purusha, or whatever you call it. We're going to eliminate few of these things. In fact, when Rene Descartes in 17th century put together his theories of the mechanistic universe, he created what is called the dualistic theory of mind and body, separation of mind and body. It took a lot of courage for later physicians or the philosophers or scientists to say that no, the mind and body are not dualistic. They are in fact together. Mind influences body and the diseases, and the body's influence, and the body influences the mind. So Western medicine made a lot of compromises and concessions throughout its course, because it's difficult to test certain hypotheses. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. So Ayurvedic, so these people, the gurus, the babas, the swaminis, social media influencers, should stop claiming that they know about Ayurveda, and or at least they might say that we are influenced by, or they might say we are not Ayurvedic healers. Please go to your Ayurvedic healer to get the proper type of treatment. So that gives more credibility to the science that need to be protected. So with that, I'm going to conclude and see